Yo, what's going on, everyone? This is a plus 22 Fortified, Spiteful, Grievous, Thundering, Ruby life pools. So, to get things started off, because I don't have a rogue in our group, we're going to go ahead and pull the big dude and come through and grab just a big chunk of things. Now, if you're playing like a prop paladin or maybe a slappy hands DK, you could probably pull a little bit more than this even with the big dude, but being brew, I highly suggest just kind of pulling this first group. You probably could pull one more group if you want, but that's okay. To start things off, you'll notice that I went through and I marked all of the Earth Shapers. The Earth Shapers are actually the most deadly mob that's in this pack here. A lot of people will think it's the big guy. It's actually not. So the ones marked with Skull, X, and Square here, the Earth Shapers, they actually do a hard cast that if it doesn't get interrupted with like a stun or a paralyze, some type of displacement, something like that, it will actually do large AoE damage to everyone in the group. And that's really bad because there's 3 of them in this pack. So definitely just make sure that as you're going through, you watch for those. Again, I generally mark them, that way they're easier to see. But once those things are taken down and you avoid the big guy, you can go on and move on to the next pack. So again, you can pull this next pack with it if you want. It just means that you could have some extra swirls on the ground. If you don't pull it, then I pull those 2 and the next pack together, and I just kind of take this down. Now here, I've used most of my cooldowns since we lusted on the last pack, so here we're just making sure that we're getting kicks on things and avoiding swirlies and making sure not to, pull extra mobs, as that's, never good. So, coming through here, noticing that we're just avoiding swirls and just kind of like getting our cooldowns back. The next pull is actually going to be kind of small. Normally I pull 3 casters here. I've altered it just a little bit to pull 2 casters, and then we pull the 3rd caster with like the big dude who does the frontal and the charge or whatnot. So here we're just kind of like killing these things, getting them grouped, and then we're waiting for good pathing on the big guy. So as these are dying, I'm going to go ahead and pull the next pack that has the 2 casters and another Earth Shaper. Again, the Earth Shaper you need to be careful of, because when we are dealing with it, if that hard cast goes through, it's going to, of course, hurt the entire group, and with it being fortified, it's going to take down most of it. So you notice I'm just pulling 2 casters here. You could pull the 3rd one that was up there next to the eggs. We are going to pull it later, but here you'll notice that these 2 casters, being a Brewmaster monk, they actually chunk really hard. Like these casts, they go through quite a bit, and because we've got a Shadow Priest and a BM Hunter on our group here, we're not able to get every single kick, so it does actually kind of hurt a little bit. So just making sure that we're getting these taken care of and taking care of any of the Earth Shapers. Now, pro tip if you are playing with a priest on your team, one of the things our Shadow Priest has been doing this week during Spiteful Week is anytime that our melee player, our Enhanced Shaman, gets targeted by a shade, he'll actually control the shade. So like they can take it as a pet or whatever, and it just lasts for 30 seconds. It'll continue dying, but the whole idea here is it'll no longer be attacking your melee. They don't have to run away, lose DPS, or risk dying. So once all that's taken care of, we're now going to go alongside the right pack here. We are going to pull this caster here, just making sure that I get a taunt on it and spinning crane kick and grab the rest. Now, someone else in my group is kicking it, so it pulls in. If you don't get that pulled in and the big guy starts patting back again, he'll pull off of just like social aggro there. So definitely make sure that it gets kicked. And then here we're just focusing the big guy and making sure that we get kicks on the star. Now, there's lots of different ways to deal with this big guy. Generally, I'll just alternate and do like Cell Brew, and then the next time I'll use one of my other defensives. And as I start to run out of defensives when I don't have Cell Brew up, then I'll just kite it when it starts to do its, slashing molten claw ability. Just make sure that you're putting in a good spot, and I generally tell my range to kind of line up in a line. That way, when it's going to target someone, it's going to target all of them, and then they all just move one way or the other, and everyone's safe. Now here you can actually see where our priest, that shade targeted our Enhanced Shaman, so right away it looks like he just disappears. It's actually just that he took control of it and it's no longer attacking the Shaman. It's just there, it's going to kill itself, and we don't really have to worry about it. So again, if you're playing with a priest, super nice. I don't know if Holy can do it. Shadow definitely can. Just a little bit of extra utility that the Shadow brings to it. So, as we're setting up for this next boss, with this being fortified, you know, the boss doesn't have nearly as much health. We did lost at the beginning of the dungeon, but here, on Tyrannical weeks, you're normally pretty good to pop all your cooldowns on pull. You're going to notice I pop them here too. I generally like to have Exploding Keg for the ad phase when all the whelps come in, but it's not a huge deal. You'll notice that when my slower members of the group get targeted by that chill circle there, I am giving them Tiger's Lust, so me and our shaman will actually alternate. Like, I'll give Tiger's Lust, then he'll throw a Windrush totem, and then I'll, you know, again, Tiger's Lust, just to kind of make it easier for people to do. And you'll notice that whenever the shards are coming out, that we are making sure to group those up and put them by the old ones. So here, I know that I didn't have Exploding Keg, so I'm just making sure to put high threat onto these ads, and then once I have threat established, I'm getting back onto the boss. Remember, it's super important to put a huge amount of damage into the boss here, and as your stacks start to go up, definitely have leg sweep ready to go. As soon as my stacks got high there, I leg sweep. It stops the, you know, add damage on me, and stops the stacks from going up, gives the healer a chance to dispel. If you are a dwarf, you can dwarf it off as well, but generally I like to leg sweep the first one, and then the second set of whelps I'll, again, you know, take care of that with either my leg sweep or I'll use my dwarf ability. So, the second set of whelps, as you guys know, comes out about in between 45 and 40%. So again, we're just, putting shit together on the side there so it's out of the way. And then once the whelps are coming out, we're getting ready to take care of them again. So again, I didn't save Exploding Keg here because cooldowns are a little bit offline with it being fortified and only being at 22. But just making sure to establish threat on them and then get off. I did tell my shaman here to drop a stun totems just so his leg sweep was still on cooldown because again, it's not tyrannical. With tyrannical, generally 1 minute to come back up. And then once this is done, it's just, you know, rinse and repeat. That, you know, the damage on you as a tank, especially if you're playing Brewmaster, does get pretty high here because it's mostly spell damage that you're getting hit with. So definitely make sure that you're using things like Cell Brew to take care of things. And when this AoE goes out like this, I like to throw out a Chi Wave. It just does a little bit of extra healing to help out. Every once in a while, if I see someone get too low, I will top them off with a Vivify, or at least hit them with a Vivify, especially with it being Grievous week. Just helps out the healing a little bit for your healer. Now, I will mention, since it is the first week with the new rings from patch 10.07 out, I am not using the new ring right now. From what I've seen through sub creation, it looks like most higher keys, tanks aren't using them. It looked like 60% weren't using them, where 40% were as of shooting this footage. But I am noticing that, you know, more people are playing around with them. If you are going to play around with them, it seems like you definitely want to have a Blood Shard and the Twilight Shard, and then you either want to go with the Storm Shard for AoE damage with your crits, or you just want to go with the Freezing Ice where it just does damage. In single target, it adds like 5k DPS, so I'm definitely going to use it in Raid, but I'm a little weary to use it on Fortified weeks just because, you know, the damage input is a little bit higher. Now, on a little bit higher keys, sometimes your Lust will be back up for this dragon. That's what we were expecting, but you can see, still have a Lust debuff there, so we're not going to Lust here. But the main things here to watch out for with this is just to be ready to help with healing. You'll see I just throw Vivify on my Hunter, and then you want to make sure that when the Tank Buster comes out, that you have Cell Brew up or some type of defensive, and have your back against the wall. You definitely don't want to be pointing your body compared to where the dragon is towards your next pull pack, or you are going to get flung into it. So you'll notice I'm just trying to keep myself on this wall here, and I'm getting knocked back into it. That way the dragon doesn't move too much. And sometimes, you know, something, I don't know what it is about bigger mobs, but you probably noticed that, like, they like to walk around you in like a circle. It's super annoying. So sometimes he'll walk like to the far left there, and if that happens, I just put down a Transcendence, and when I get knocked, I just instantly transcend back to it. So this obviously is a big like healing check for your healers. We have a Resto Druid, so it tends not to be too bad, but you'll notice I am, every time that the debuff goes out, I am throwing out like a Chi Wave, and as needed I am Vivifying to help off heal where needed. Alright, once this is done, we're going to go into the next pack. Now, if you have multiple melee, I only have got one melee with my comp, because we're, you know, not meta over here. So, when we do this, we like to assign myself and one of the range to Star, and then the other melee and one of the range to purple. In this case, we normally put the Enhanced Shaman and the Priest together since they have shorter and longer cooldowns. But you'll notice I pulled this pack just slightly away. That's because the pack that's up next, Paths, has 2 of the Flame Dancers and another caster. And on Fortified weeks, those casters, when you don't have casts for them, or interrupts for them, is pretty deadly. So generally I pull these away, and you're going to notice that I consider pulling these in, and I am going to pull them in since they died. If it's a little bit of a higher key or these pat in at a bad time where they're high, I definitely wouldn't recommend pulling it. However, you could use the fact that Priest can mind control basically anything to mind control one of the casters, and then just once the other casters are dead, you can tell them to release it and then deal with that. But just be ready. Again, Flame Dancers, you can use Paralyze, you can use Leg Sweep, you can even use Ring of Peace to stop their Flame Dance, as well as the Knock-Up Circle that the big elemental there does to stop those, as well as some of the casts from the casters. So there you can see I am using Ring of Peace to knock that up, and as soon as we get a kick on this purple guy, the caster, once he dies, I'm going to pull into the next pack. Now again, if you didn't pull this with this pack is actually safe to pull with the next one. It does mean that you have 3 Flame Dancers, but you'll only have 2 casters, which generally is you know, the better option there of having 2 casters together. But definitely make sure that when you're doing this, you're setting interrupt macros so that you're ready to just focus kick. And you do want to put priority damage onto the red elemental here. Every time it does that AoE, it's going to put a big strain on your healer, so you definitely want to watch out for that, while also still being ready to use Paralyze, Leg Sweep, Ring of Peace to stop Flame Dances, and all that stuff. So generally, again, every time the AoE comes out from the elemental, I will go ahead and Chi Wave just to give a little bit of healing, and you definitely want to make sure that you're using like a Cell Brew at that time, or just some defensive. Be ready to get yourself up. Now, while a lot of these mobs end up being the same up here, I'm going to talk a little bit about my talents that I'm using, since I haven't had a chance to post videos for a while, as I made a post about it, but real life work's been just kicking my ass lately, so I haven't been posting as much, but I'm hoping that that's going to change as school is slowing down for me. I'm a teacher in real life, so school year's normally pretty busy for me. So, talent-wise here, to avoid some button blow, and because I'm working with a Resto Druid, Resto Druids aren't as good at, taking big damage chunks and healing you through it. They're a little bit better this season than they were in past expansions. But because of this, I go ahead and I actually use Healing Elixir instead of the talent that, like, whenever you Blackout Kick, it reduces your stagger a little bit. So I have that talent set here, and you'll notice that I'm not using Jade Wind. I'm actually using whenever I Purify or Cell Brew, it throws up a keg. Now, most of that is for button blow. If I wasn't using Healing Elixir, then I would switch over to Jade Tornado, and I would have that going as we're going through things. So I am using those talents just to make things a little bit easier on my healer. Just anytime I'm getting big chunks, it's easy to just hit Healing Elixir and have that 15% heal. And generally, you have 2 charges of it. You don't need it all the time, but when you do need it, it's nice to have that boom 30% heal on you, plus the expel harms there. So that's what I'm using as far as talents go. I do have 2 points into High Tolerance, and then I do have the shorter cooldown on the Cell Brew and my Purifying Brew, again, just because I am using where it throws the kegs up in the air. If I was using the other talents, then I would consider using the one where you get more mastery for higher stagger. That's actually pretty good. I use that one during raid a lot. Alright, so now that this pack is dead, if the dragon lifts off here, you can pretty much pull and go. If we have a priest, though, which we do here, generally, you can see he's Mind Soothed, that add there. You can actually walk around the tree. But I knew that the dragon was about to pick up, so you notice they're walking around the tree, but I'm actually just going to pull these because my route involves needing these Scorchlings. So if the dragon's there, when you go by, you can go behind the tree with a Mind Soothe there, and then you would just have to grab the Scorchlings as soon as the dragon leaves. But you'll notice that we pull these, and then I kind of just pull them back out of the way. That way, all the range can get in close, and we don't risk pulling that dragon because you don't need it with the percent. If you skip things earlier and you have a rogue in your group, you might need to pull that dragon. It just kind of depends on your route, but my route doesn't include that. So here again, we're just focusing damage on the big elemental and getting the Cinder Weaver cast kicked, while also making sure to be ready for Flame Dance. As soon as this dance, or the caster dies here, when that next pack comes through that has the 2 casters and the Flame Dancer, you can go ahead and pull that, because again, it's safe to do with only, you know, yourself and 1 melee. If you run 2 melee, you might be fine to pull all those together, or again, you can choose to use like the priest to take control of one of the casters here. But again, kind of the same thing we've been dealing with the last ones. Just make sure you're focusing the big elemental here, and you know, be ready to take care of the flame dances. Now, something I didn't mention that you probably know, but you might not, is that when the flame dancers die, they do that like dance for whatever amount of time. They actually have a shield on them, so when they are dancing like that, you can actually just have, if you have a priest, a hunter, a shaman, demon hunter, can't remember what else does it, lock maybe, you can actually just dispel the shield off them and they'll instantly die. So instead of like dealing with the dance and having to avoid the swirls and stuff, you can just normally purge that off using a offensive dispel, and they'll stop casting. So it's actually pretty nice. Now, we actually lusted like the pack before the dragon because we forgot to lust earlier. Normally, again, I like to lust the first dragon, and it just wasn't up there. So when for tyrannical anyways, so anytime that you're doing a big pull up here, you can pretty much lust. The big thing is you want to make sure that you lust early enough that you have lust for the pack before the last boss for this fortified week, because fortified, you're going to want it for that last pack. It is the most dangerous. It's way more dangerous than the boss. Again, tyrannical weeks, you'll want it for each of the bosses, but here you'll want it for the ads. So anywhere upstairs is fine, but the earlier the better, that way you have it. So when I pull this, I like to pull this over to the right side. We like to put over the elemental over here. You will generally need 3 kicks for these elementals as long as you're focusing them. So generally, you know, I'll do my kick first, then our shaman, and then our hunter, and we leave our, you know, priest as it just in case. But the big thing here is also to make sure that you're careful on baiting meteors. So make sure that your team is aware when meteors are coming, and you can see we're trying to bait the meteors towards the edge here, and we just kind of get alongside the edge of the fire and bait it towards those directions, because you definitely don't want to be walking through it. Especially if this was a tyrannical week, walking over fire is just, it's huge. It hurts so much. So again here, we can see this ad. Generally the second one lines up with a meteor right after it, so again, we're trying to bait. Unfortunately, we had a semi-not great bait there, but that's okay. We've got lots of room to work with. A lot of people don't know this. You can actually walk this entire ring with the boss and it won't reset. So as much room as you need throughout the ring, just keep on walking. Just be careful of those other ads, like the one that we mind soothed earlier that are on the sides there. Those ones are pretty dangerous to deal with, and if you pull them during the boss, they definitely hurt. So rinse and repeat with this. As a tank, definitely make sure that you're being watchful on the steering blows casts here. You will want to have some type of defensive up, whether it's Cell Brew, whether it's Dampen Harm. You can diffuse it as well. It'll just reduce the magic damage that it does. You'll still take the physical damage portion, but it does help. So you have lots of different choices there. If you absolutely need to, you can always Zen Med it, but I'm pretty sure with it being physically, that's only going to reduce the first attack. I've never actually tried it, but I'm pretty sure with it being a mix of physical and magical that it's going to take off after the first hit. So maybe just use that in last case emergencies. And, you know, if you absolutely need to, you can always, you know, just be ready with a health pot as well. Now, again, on this week, it's not too bad to deal with, but you might need to use some extra healing to help out every time that the ad here, the Flame Elemental, does its AoE. The cast, not this explosion at the end, but be ready to use Chi Wave just to help out. You know, I generally only use Chi Wave for like pulling or to help with healing. So anytime an AoE goes out, you can pretty much use Chi Wave and it'll be there for things. So from here, it's we're in the end shot here. You can see I've already set up markers here because we did this a couple times. We actually just missed a 23. We should have timed it easily, but we had someone make a mistake at the end there. And so this is a 22 instead of a 23 that I'm showing you guys. But on this pack, you can pull all the other like groups together. You just want to focus down the Chandler. Again, here, this is a big time to use Chi Wave and just be wary of things. It looked like our shaman, he got there. So just be careful, make sure you have thread on things. But I do believe that was actually the ads or just a lightning bolt that hit them. So just be careful. Make sure we're getting interrupts on the Chandler here. And then the nice thing is the next pack, if you have a shaman, it only requires 1 kick. So if you are comfortable with it and your healer is comfortable with it, you can actually pull the next 3-pack with this one, and just have your shaman take care of the flame channeler all by themselves. Now, because ours died, I didn't pull, obviously, and it's tyrannical, or not, sorry, not tyrannical, but fortified, so this pack does hurt quite a bit for your healer, so playing it safe, not a problem, especially when you've got enough time there. So, after this, we're going to pull the Flame Channeler pack here, and I'm actually going to pull some of these little small elemental tornadoes on the right side there, just for the percent, because we need it, and just to make sure that the boss room's clean. So you can see I pull this. Unfortunately, these apparently aren't connected, because I pull, and I get 3 of them, but not the 4th. So, target the far one, I guess. But while this is going on, you can also, again, if you have a shaman, you just need 1 kick on the flame channeler. If you don't have a shaman, you do need 2, because it's like a 11-second interrupt or something like that, or 12. It's whatever shaman is that they can get them all. But if you don't, then you can start setting up markers. I generally put a marker on each of these pillars here, one where we're standing and then one towards where the boss is. And that's just so that we know where winds are going, and you can easily call it. Now, when you do this, you have to be careful when you pull. You don't want to run in, because sometimes when you run in, one of these mobs will run into the next pack, and it'll aggro the other pack. So our hunter was supposed to kick this, and she didn't kick it fast enough, so I lost aggro on it. And it just sat there and cast. But you do want to be careful just pulling that, because you don't want to pull that other pack. The other pack, especially on Fortified Week, is absolutely deadly. You want to make sure your healer has full mana and is ready to go. But on this one, again, our shaman is taking care of our flame channeler here, and then me and one of our range is taking care of the Tempest channeler. The Tempest channeler is what you want to focus here. The flame channeler doesn't actually do like anything, right? But you do want to get this Tempest channeler down. So definitely make sure that whoever's kicking those, that they are getting those as focus kicks and focusing the channeler, though. The Tempest channeler. Once that's dead, if your healer needs mana, I can see that mine does, so I'm going to go ahead and pull a couple more of these small adds while they're drinking. It's normally safe to do. They'll tend to jump on them, but if you have someone who runs behind wherever your healer is drinking at, it'll always jump to the farthest person. So with it being Spiteful Week, our hunter was like running in back, and just our healer is able to drink, and I'm just, pulling these, getting them out of the way for the next. So the next pack is where we're going to lust. You can see, because we forgot to lust on like one of the first 2 elemental packs on the ring, that we didn't have lust ready yet, so we're gonna have to lust later. But the big thing here is making sure we get kicks on this high channeler. You're focusing it, nothing else. And then when these small little squalls are out, if you have a priest, make sure that every time they spawn that they are using mass dispel, or purging these shields off, because a lot of times when you get that lightning shield, it's because it's stealing the shield from these small thunder cloud primals that are spawning. So if you purge them, it will get rid of their shields, and then he can't use it, and then he doesn't have any shield that you have to kill. So generally that's what you need to do. That's where we made our mistake on our 23 that we should have timed. We did it as 24 and then reset it to do the 23, and we forgot to make sure that we were purging the squalls, and we got shield like 6 times, and it's not good. It definitely makes this encounter for this pack be like 3 minutes long, and it's not fun for your healer, and you just start dying because it's very mana intensive. So use those purges if you have them. Again, any shaman and priest can just like straight up purge without cooldown, but if you have a hunter and demon hunter, they do have a 10-second cooldown on that. And I think same thing if you have a lock and they are using the one Fellhound pad. But once that's dead, just go ahead and pull back again, take care of any shades that are up, and then let your healer drink again. That way you can get ready for the boss. Now, don't forget with this boss, if this was tyrannical, you'd want to save lust for the second phase when he mounts the dragon. But with this, you should have used lust right there on that last pack. And you just want to pull and tank Eric Hart in between these 2 pillars here, and you want to be putting your flames that you get, whoever gets target with it, on the pillars. So here you want to focus the boss, the dragon boss. Anytime it's up, it's going to do the most amount of damage, so you want to get it low and get it transitioned to the next phase to get it out of this fight here. So just make sure that you're using alternating like Cell Brew if you have it, Dampen Harm, Cell Brew, Diffuse. Diffuse will work on the tank hit here, but just remember it's only going to negate the magical portion of the hit, because it's both a physical and magic portion. So just be careful here. Be careful where you stand. Our healer went to this thing, and his fire breath, even though he's way back there on the tail, he's still getting hit by it. So you can see he's about to drop 5 stacks, and that he already did that. But just be careful with that dragon, so that you're not back there, and just be careful. Now, if you don't know the winds, they start by blowing towards where the boss started. Then they blow towards where the red marker was marked. And then after that, they're going to blow towards the star marker, towards the back. That's what they're doing right here in the third. And then the next one's always going to be towards the other pillar to the right, and then it just repeats. So it actually just goes in a circle. A lot of people don't know that, but again, you can mark it. There is a weak aura that tells you as well, but it's nice to know. Now, when this guy mounts the dragon, make sure as soon as he mounts that you get a taunt on Eric card again, because he'll reset threat. And if you don't taunt it, most of your hits on the dragon isn't going to hit Eric, so you're not going to get threat. So make sure that you taunt it and throw a cake smash into it. And then the dragon also doesn't have any threat when you come into it, but it's generally easier to get threat back on the dragon than it is on Eric, just because the weird verticalness of how high he is up first. So definitely take care of the dragon here. Make sure that you're aware of where the fire is coming from. This portion of the fight, if you get thundering, clear it right away while the dragon's up. Just believe me, you don't want to wipe to someone getting trapped behind fire and then you or your healer getting stunned and then wiping. It's not a good way to end. Ask me how I know. So just make sure that you're careful about that. But once Eric has dismounted in the dragon's stead, you can pretty much just leave thundering and deal with it like normal. But again, here you're just dealing with it, and at this point, the fight's basically done. So thanks everyone who stuck around through my hiatus there as I was working through real life. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe and like the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. I'll have more content coming, hopefully every week from here on out as we go from spring into summer. So I'll catch you guys later. See ya!